What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Hey Whoosy. This is episode 18, and today I have a new guest on the show. I'm excited to have him here. Nathan Swift, who's the current marketing director for Whoosy AI, which is all things artificial intelligence and storytelling and market position. And he's just an awesome guy to have. And I'm hoping that there's going to be a tremendous amount of value from the peer review of a marketer, but also someone that really has shaped the path of where Whoosy is today, since he was I think you were at the very beginning of this whole thing, right, Nate?
Yeah. Started from the very top of the plan, I guess.
Very, very cool. So I just want to say, in kind of setting the tone of this conversation, I want you guys to think about what it means to be competitive in today's world, truly competitive, not just showing up, not just grinding, not just working hard, but actually operating at a different level than everyone else in your space. Because the thing is, nobody talks about in marketing nowadays is there's a gap between the person who knows what to do and the person who actually has the tools to execute it fast, creatively, strategically. That gap is where businesses are won and lost. So today, I'm really, really excited to talk to Nate about marketing, specifically in the conversation that we had about how things have been shifting in our space and how fast artificial intelligence has been moving and how we have had to kind of sidestep a little bit, right? We've had to kind of make these adjustments on the fly as to what our core product is and what we're going to be doing and so on and so forth. So welcome, Nate. I'm really pumped you're here. Thanks for being here. For everyone that doesn't know you, which is going to be shrinking every week, I already know this because you're going to be a returning guest on here. Give me the quick version. Who are you, what you do, and how'd you end up here in the first place?
Yeah, straight out of college. Well, I guess I'm Nate, but straight out of college, I started my own business. So I got my degree in finance and then took an interest in marketing. And during that period, I was just YouTube learning everything. So I got into helping small businesses basically build from the ground up, everything from social to websites. I managed some of their, bought their domains for them, basically set them all up. So in all the different facets of building a business, a small business especially, where you don't have a lot of capital, I learned quite a few ways to finagle the system to save money and still keep the overall balance of the product or service top tier. So there was cutting corners, and AI has made it quite a bit easier to do that.
That's a big shift heading from finance to marketing. It's very left brain versus right brain thinking. What like led you there in the first place? I'm just curious.
Yeah, and I think it's just built into the blood. My grandpa had his own business. My dad had his own business. I went and got my finance degree as one of those kids. I went for kinesiology, said, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I picked a business degree. And finance was the one I did because I was like, if I'm going to start a business, I probably should run some numbers. And that's how I got into it. Yeah. But the creative space of marketing was always more interesting. Learning the psychology behind behaviors of why people want to do things or why they buy products or services.
Yeah, I think marketing in general, even though the fundamentals of advertising, right? Storytelling, being able to capture an audience, the words, right? The music, the videos, the images, all that fluctuation within creative, that doesn't really change. What changes is the tactics or the implements of which you actually utilize to be able to transfer that creative expertise towards, right? But in terms of the lay of the land, even going back to just 2 years, the landscape has shifted drastically. And I say that in the way that we are able to access tools and utilize those tools to be able to access millions of eyeballs for relatively inexpensive. Back in the 60s, you were advertising on radio. Back in the 80s, early 90s, you were advertising on television. And it wasn't really until 2008, 2009 that people really started putting billboard ads on Facebook. Prior to that, we had Google advertising, what have you. But the cost of which to acquire a client or a customer was always rather staggering, especially if you're starting out as a small business. Nowadays, you can catapult that and deploy at such a large scale for such a minute amount of dollars and cents in comparison by a great margin. Because we're talking about artificial intelligence and those specific tool sets, when we think about what few apps or what strategies that we could implement, let's say for free or almost free, what do you tend to look for?
Yeah, yeah. So when I was working with all those small businesses, picking out the clients that I wanted to work with, it was actually the human that I had to validate first, right? If we
Yep.
have a small budget, what are you going to go do? Door knock? Is that going to be a
Right.
possibility for you? So it was really the ambition behind the individual and the quality of their work ethic to be able to want to work with them. So it wasn't a 2 week, hey, I have this great idea and then it falls apart, right?
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
didn't mind not being paid what an agency is typically paid. I was just starting out myself, but just had accelerated learning because I was so invested into what I wanted to learn and do for these people. And it was pretty cool. So working with a bunch of service industries in one city, you're able to build a lot of relationships where, it's like a GC almost. You have the drywaller, you've got the tiler, you've got the plumber, the electrician. So these business I was working with, I was actually able to get referrals from one to the other, get them off the ground running because of these referrals.
Hmm.
And then they were able to reinvest into their business that way. But it does come down to that person first and what they're willing to do to make things happen.
So it seems like the marketing of yesteryear was very manual based and fragmented, right? Creatively frustrating because you're limited on what you can do and what you can't do, especially if you're starting out and you're limited on resources, employees, what have you. You don't really have time to go and door knock. Maybe you could do some cold outreach. Maybe you can send a few phone calls or what have you. But again, you're limited. So, in terms of output, we're essentially doing more work for less output nowadays, especially with caveat, with the access to the whole Whoosy ecosystem, correct?
Sure.
So the reality then becomes these tools, can they solve the problem at little to no expense that you were, I guess, trying to remedy for a small business that had very low to almost none in terms of resources?
Yeah, if we back up to, well, what's needed to actually produce quality work for whatever business you're working on.
Yeah.
Data matters, right? Data is one of
Hmm.
the biggest things that you have to analyze to be able to see what's working and what's not working. So before we had ecosystems where we could use AI tools and use them as a counterpart indirectly to make more money, not directly. You're not telling an agent, hey, go put $100 in my bank account every day.
Right.
But it does amplify indirectly your income because you're able to do more. So the the gap that's closed, I mean, it's opened a ton more gaps, but the gap that is closed is being able to aggregate data that is specific to these people, your target audience that you want to be able to acquire their business from, and in a very personalized way. So if you've ever read, this is where psychology comes into it. And I think psychology is actually one of the most important things to educate yourself on rather than business books.
Hmm.
I've read both, but sometimes you could read a fantasy or a sci-fi and get more out of it than a business book, right?
I agree.
But psychology it's the basic functions of how humans work. So if you can understand just a little bit about how the mind works and what people are interested in, what drives them to make decisions, whether it's pressure, there's some sort of emotional cue there that makes them say, okay, I got to click the button to buy, right? Or I got to
Hmm.
call them to
Hmm.
get this done because there's just too much stress on me.
Right.
That part right there with AI, and you're able to hyper personalize all this aggregated data for, instead of a segmented email to an audience, it's a company based email to an audience where it's, I know all about your company. I'm going to predict your pain points because, I mean, AI's prediction models are very good at predicting what people might want to hear in an email, right? So hyper specific is the name of the game now, but everybody knows that. So there's the thing I think to do now would essentially be able to understand or make a good assumption on what AI could possibly do in the future, right? Like it creating videos at some point was a possibility a year ago, right? So if you
Right.
could predict how AI is going to work in this consumer behavior atmosphere, what are you going to gamble on to make sure that your product is already there before everybody else gets there? So you can be the one in the inbox or on the call or on the demo, 5, 10xing your business because you have an assistant that's helping you prepare, talk, recap, follow up.
Hmm.
that's where I'd put my eggs in a basket. Is if I'm pretty good at this so far, and I've learned a lot of lessons along the way over the last 3 years, what's going to be next?
No, I appreciate that. I guess before we get into the nuts and bolts, I'm just curious, like when a lot of people that are when they hear the term AI, this is just my own perception, but also what I found from being alive, let's call it a case study. But majority of folks like, oh, AI, they reference ChatGPT. They reference an LLM, which stands for a large language model. And I'm not an expert by any means, but I understand fundamentally that this type of AI is a chat-based interface where you can communicate, ask it questions, train it, what have you, so on and so forth. In terms of a landscape of artificial intelligence within the ecosystem of Whoosy AI, like what, in your opinion, like if I were to get started today, why would that be such a good use of my limited resources versus doing something like a ChatGPT?
See, yeah, the linear chat face versus the suite of tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
There, yeah, so there's a lot of noise when AI first came out, right? I think the AI influencers have traumatized and continue to traumatize people who have, little to no knowledge about AI. So
Right.
they get into a new platform and they go, okay, what's different about this? Or if I tested it the same way, ChatGPT versus Whoosy, what are the core differences? But you have to have that knowledge to be able to do the testing to understand what difference you're looking for or what quality of output you're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first learning curve with it. But once you get past that, uh, my favorite product is Canvas. So being able to visually see what I have on the board, what I've connected, the context that I've given this chat to produce research, if I want to use ChatGPT's deep thinking model, whether I want to use Claude to write the copy that ChatGPT's deep thinking did prior in that chat, the workflows they're built in a way, right? So you create the workflows, you attach the YouTube videos, the files, the documents, whatever research you have and context you want to give it. And then as you move down with that chat and you're exploring the ideas or the iterations of whatever you're working on, switching between models is such a key component to that platform, because now I'm not going between ChatGPT and Claude. One's significantly better at writing copy, like night and day
Right.
better at writing copy, even code, right? So if you're doing HTML for emails, if you're doing it for landing pages, that stuff becomes really important because you don't want to have to bog down your workflow with exporting this file, putting it in a Word doc, downloading it, or having some kind of new platform that syndicates all of your API keys, right? So Whoosy uses its own API keys. You're the guest in the suite of tools, and you just get it for whatever you pay monthly.
So Canvas was really the first thing that you used that made you go, okay, this is different. This is something else. All right, so let's get a little bit more specific, because I know that our audience love conceptual stuff. We talk a lot about philosophy, but we do get into tactical conversations, and they want to know how. They want to understand how you do this versus how do you do that without getting too complicated, because again, this is a podcast medium and we want to make sure that those that are listening versus those that are watching can at least understand what it is that we're discussing. So what is generally the most common use case that you found or that you feel is the most advantageous for people?
Yeah, with AI, it's always, I'm just going to hand it off and let it do it for me, right? But as the human, we
Right.
always have to be in control of whatever we're working on and understand the holes that are in our business. So, where I start is like the outline. Like if I'm going to complete this project, whether it's we're launching a new product and I need to do emails or YouTube videos, tutorials, whatever it is, I'm going to outline my project first, and I'm going to do this all inside of Canvas. After I get step one done, where I have my true outline for this needs to be done before this gets done, before this gets done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say I'm building the email campaigns. I'm going to go find the type of copy, the type of research that I want, because I know what's working, right? I'm not going to leave it up to AI to hopefully guess that this is going to work because it said it's going to work. So being in control of the context that I give it is going to be able to produce, the tone of voice and that persona and give me something back that I really like. Now, I'm also going to have to go do some research on specific use cases. Like I watched this one on HubSpot.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what they're doing over there is, ingesting inbound forms. Maybe they downloaded a white paper, some kind of document, hyper specific, right? They wanted this one piece of information. Do I want to segment my email onboarding into two different types of onboarding? So if they downloaded this, they get this one. If they downloaded that, they get this one, right? So as I'm working through this, I'm making sure I'm in control of all of the different pieces, and I'm laying out steps inside of Canvas for it. So step one is gather information around the people like this avatar I've created, right? Step two would be if I want my design and my layout to look like modern, sleek, match the website. Well, I'm going to go take screenshots of my website. I'm going to go give it my web address. I'm going to have it go look through my color codes and my typography. So when it writes this HTML code, it has a reference to be able to do so in the right manner. You know,
So you're uploading screenshots and you're putting in web addresses. All collect-
why leave there, why leave
Yeah.
any space for interpretation? You know, just
Yeah.
give it what it needs. Yeah. So at the end of the day, when this whole template is done and I've uploaded it to whatever I've uploaded it to, I'm looking at the quality of what it's produced. So, you know, when you're doing HTML work and coding, I'm not a software coder. I took one computer science class and I basically failed it, but didn't because I had to cheat a little bit, right? So being able to have it give me the HTML code and then be immersed in that environment where I kind of know what the padding is and I kind of know where to insert the clickable link and the image URL so it populates. It has increased my ability to understand kind of that human psychology, but also what it's going to be interpreted as once it gets at the end of the day. What I'm saying is continuous learning. So I'm not just in the
Right.
field of this marketing department, but now I've moved into computer science because AI has been able to help me expand that
Right.
while I'm working on a project that I need to get done.
So in terms of hours and in terms of resources or team, I feel like you're doing multiple, like you're handling multiple jobs simultaneously.
Yeah.
And like the amount of hours that you're saving on top of dollars potentially sounds pretty insane.
Yeah, I guess instead of AI making you more money, it saves you more money.
Yeah, like if you had to quantify it for a project of that size, what would you, if you had to do it the old fashioned way, would you say that's like a 10-hour job, a 5-hour job, a 15-hour job, a week-hour job? What do you
Well,
think?
I mean, you're looking at 6 weeks just to get data from it.
Yep.
So it's I don't know if it's quantifiable in hours, but based on the
And
sales that you make.
yeah, and then within Whoosie's ecosystem, how long does it take you?
Yeah, I did 20 emails, I think, in 7 hours.
Oh
And
my
these were
God.
all custom coded, deep research, like
Wow.
thoroughly done correctly,
Wow.
not just, hey, thanks for downloading our file, you know?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah.
So the compound effect is massive, it seems like.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is. Once you know how to use it, it turns you into a superhuman.
Yeah. A lot of people, but you know, I'm noticing this a lot with marketers, especially copywriters. They're almost afraid to use AI tools because they feel like it waters down their voice and their brand identity and everything that they've kind of built within their career. I think it's because they think like everything starts to feel and look the same. Do you ever feel that? Like how do you navigate that if you navigate it at all?
Yeah, no, it's more so that I know what I want it to look like, feel like, and sound like. So when it gets off course, I'm able to correct it, right? I'm not so much worried about or realize that everything's sounding the same, but sounding the way that I want it to.
Yeah, I feel like you use it as the director and you're leveraging the tools as multiple different positions and creative expertise and logical expertise and you know whatever it is. Like you're literally building like this mini team of AI assistant tool help whatever that executes based off of your direction and your brand identity and you know your voice and what have you, right? Or the company's voice.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's several departments to the company, so making sure that what I'm saying is the same talk track as sales, as operations, as you know, the founder wants it to sound. I do grab material that helps me do that, and you know, once these boards are set up, And you set them up right. You make sure that they're organized. You make sure that it's clear and concise of what each one tries to do. So that email onboarding campaign, once I did it
Hmm.
one time, I just
Hmm.
duplicated it, went to the
Yeah.
next product, duplicated it, went to the next product. I use it across for, school community, just talking inside of different groups inside of there. I use it for thumbnail generations to get new ideas. The image generation is great, um, but it lacks taste, you
Yeah.
know, or it looks too this way or that way. It's finicky. So at the end of the day, like I'm still going into Canva and building out the thumbnail that I think is going to work, but because I have these different generations and variations based on this whole conversation I just had about creating the YouTube video, it's very well informed.
Hmm.
It allows me to be able to do that even faster because I'm not, scrubbing through a bunch of YouTube videos in the same niche.
Yeah, it's expediting your process. I mean, I think that's the greatest mindset shift that separates people who thrive with these tools versus the ones that kind of get lost in them. I look at it as like the director versus the passenger, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like back in the day, a lot of great marketing ideas were lost between the concept and the execution. We didn't have the time to explore. We
Yeah.
had we had a deadline to that we had to hit. Now we can hit that deadline and iterate 5 times before it's even done,
Right.
right? And I mean, that's the power to it is let's test, 50 different Facebook ads versus four, see which one performs, and then allocate where necessary.
I kind of wanted to shift a little bit because I want to make sure that we're staying on track here in terms of time. But something that doesn't get enough attention, I think, is competitive intelligence. In terms of marketing and knowing your competitors, what they're doing just isn't useful. It's sometimes survival versus what they're doing is actually very useful, and you can just kind of copy or iterate. How has Whoosy changed the way that you monitor and you respond to your competitive landscape personally in your role?
I mean, I think everybody's got great ideas, especially when you see them work. You see the Instagram
Yeah.
ad that comes out and you're like, wow, I wouldn't have liked that or commented, send me the details. But for some reason, 500 other people thought so.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, it aggregates the data so well. If you want to just analyze competitor websites and bring them in to understand what they all have in common, do the Venn diagram, see what's different about them, it does help a lot. Just having that information available without you having to create the spreadsheet and make the charts.
Yeah. No, couldn't agree more. I'm a big proponent of Jordan Peterson's way of thinking. I think it's a nice blend between creative and logic. And there's something I think philosophically interesting that I keep coming back to, where he talks about how the person who can see more of the map, who has a broader and more accurate model of reality, is always going to make better decisions, ultimately, like the end.
Hmm.
Because what you're essentially describing is Who's expanding your map. You're seeing terrain that your competitors can't even perceive yet. It's giving you a leg up if you use it and you use it in the capacity that it's meant to be used. Yes or no? Do you agree?
100% agree. Yeah.
So then it's not just about efficiency. Now we're entering the realm of leverage, which is fundamentally different position in the market because everyone's working hard and you could work hard and you can grind 17, 18 hours a day, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to succeed because not everyone is working with this level of clarity and this level of execution and reach. I think
Yeah.
that's really what's most important. All right, man. So what about, let's go a little bit more personal. I think it's important because you mentioned that when we started that the world of marketing and technology opened to you after you went to school for finance, which is to this day I think is interesting. Can you talk about how if you were in that position today and the AI evolution was happening at that time, do you think you would have went to school for finance, or do you think that you would have maybe even left school and just focused on something else entirely because of the landscape of it? Because that's a lot. That's where a lot of people are right now. And I'm not just talking about kids going to college. I'm talking about people that are adjusting their entire career, that have been an expert in a space for 20 or 30 years, shifting completely into this new paradigm.
Yeah. So I think one like catalyst of my life that what would help me make this decision more clear is when I met Rick Gray, he's one of our sales guys at Hoosie. I thought coaching was nonsense, and he's a real estate coach, right? And I just thought it was entirely nonsense. Like, what do I need somebody telling me to strengthen my mindset for?
Right.
And I was being fully immersed in that atmosphere with him by making his YouTube videos, helping out with his community, his website. I was doing all that stuff for him. And it finally clicked where I was like, man, I've actually noticed a huge difference in myself because I've been listening to what he has to say through every hour-long YouTube video that he's making, right? It started making a lot of sense.
Hmm.
I haven't had a lot of people be able to relate to that kind of specific story, but I did have one buddy. He actually wrote a book called I Accidentally Did Therapy. And he was going through a tough time money-wise, and his sister hired him on. She's a big therapist on social media. And he was immersed in that therapy experience where he's learning all about human decision and why we feel certain ways. And
Hmm.
what he grew from that was this new human that doesn't take life so seriously anymore, right? That not everything has so much weight on it. So going back to your question, like if I was to go and work now, I wouldn't go to college. I guess it would depend on the dynamic of what I was trying to do. If I was starting my own business, I wouldn't go to college. I would just go learn,
Hmm.
right? I would have better information, newer use cases, way easier time learning what I actually wanted to learn versus the 10, 15-year-old textbooks they give you in class.
Yep. Yep.
If I didn't want to start my own business though, I would I'd probably go to college. I really would. I think it's still a necessity to be able to make the connections that you need to make because it's still human first, right? It's always still going to be human first. We're not going to want to talk to an AI agent. I mean, those conversational agents, 90% of the first text somebody types into them on a website is human or human, please, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk to them.
I also think it depends on the type of college that you're going to,
Yeah,
you know,
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
in terms of being able to connect with folks and building
So
those relationships.
what do you think about the saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life?
I think that's, I think it's bullshit
Yeah, yeah, I do too.
personally.
Right.
Um,
I think being able to own the space that you're in and having the income lets you be able to do what you love every day. Because I love fishing every day, but,
yes.
but I don't do that for work.
Right.
Yeah, and I
I
don't think
think
it would be as much fun if it wasn't a
no.
vacation for me, if it was a job for me. And I don't want to make my hobbies my job.
Yeah. The whole idiom of like, oh, just do your passion. You can make money from your passion, whatever. I get it. There are extreme examples
Yeah,
of either side, always, right? There's always going to be an outlier. But for the majority, like, yeah, you find love in one aspect of the thing that you are doing, and it makes kind of the whole thing just, whether it's bearable or enough to influence you to continue to do it every day, because most emotional things don't last. Relationships, you fall in love, there's ecstasy, there's lust involved, and it eventually becomes like an actual relationship that you have to build trust and foundations upon, and then it takes work, and it's this, that, and the other. It's just like everything else. You can't be motivated every day to do something. You have to build discipline. You have to, tenacity, the will to be able to achieve things. So that's what compounds every single day. And I do want to ask you a question before we get out of here. Where do you think this, all of this AI stuff, like the space of artificial intelligence in technology, where do you think it's going? Where do you see it going?
yeah. It's hard to give an opinion on it because I don't want to fall into the trap of being that AI influencer of what's coming and what to expect, and we don't know, right? Like we're
Right.
really just not gonna know. But what we do know is that a lot of companies are using our data. Social
Yep.
media companies,
Yep.
you name them, our data is out
Yep.
there. That is what I would be most concerned or worrisome about is what the people who have the power are going to do with the data, not so much what the little guy like me is going to be using AI for or where it's going to go take our jobs. Like probably not, but yeah, where the power is, I wonder how they're going to be using it in the next 5 years.
Yeah. It's challenging because it's moving at such an alarming pace that whatever we think is going to happen in 5 years might end up happening in 5 months.
Yeah, and you think about before AI came out, Instagram was able to use their algorithm to put different top comments based on what it thought you wanted to see. So
Yeah.
on a video, there could be some like a population agreeing with the video because you would agree with the video. And for me, I could be the exact opposite. I mean, with AI and video and all this other stuff, it's not even like you have to see it to believe it anymore. I mean, there's cases out there now where it's like we need like witness testimony to be able to know if something's actually happening or not, because AI is so good at just twisting the arm.
Right.
Yeah, just do good with it, I guess. Just make sure you do good with it, and you don't have to worry about that stuff too much.
Yeah, 100%. I think you just need to be able to utilize it for what you're trying to accomplish, and try not to let it overthrow you by any means, and don't get too confused and try to dip your hands in too many things at once. I mean, that's overload. It just makes things worse. Things become far more complicated and diluted at that point. Last thing I wanted to ask before we go is, do you believe that if you jump on right now into this whole AI thing, that you're starting late, or do you believe that you can literally just still get a leg up? Like, it's not too late to jump on. It's not too late to jump into the Whoosy ecosystem if that's something that you're looking for, or it's not too late to be able to utilize these tools and start to learning these tools to be able to apply to your career. Yes or no? I'm just curious.
No, I don't think it's too late at all. I mean, you see companies join industries that have been around for hundreds of years, and now they're the top of the industry, right?
Yeah.
It's
What about those that are intimidated by AI? They just don't know where to start.
that's just a fault of your own. I mean, if you can find a way to start if you want to, it's no one's stopping you from going on YouTube and looking up a couple videos, finding a guy you like, and then following what he does just to get started.
How can they learn more about Whoosy? You guys got a website?
Whoosy, yeah. Whoosy.ai. You can go on there. You can book a meeting if you just want to learn a little bit more about AI. If you want, you can honestly email me at nate@whoosy.ai, and I can give you some really good YouTube channels that I learned my basis of AI on if you want to. I'd be happy just to help.
That's fantastic. That's great. And that's really worth dollars and cents there, man. That's something that if I were wanting to seek more experience, because social media is very confusing, even on YouTube, trying to be able to decide, because you don't know what you don't know. And so you could be listening to someone that is a proclaimed expert, completely giving you falsified information or outdated information, right? Well, hey, man, I really appreciate you jumping on. You showed up with real conversations, real experience, and you gave us zero fluff, which I'm all about, and our guests are all about, and our listeners are all about. So thank you so much for being here. Everyone listening, if you guys like this episode, if it made you think differently about what's possible in your work, your career, your creative output, that's the point. That's what we're trying to do here. Hey Uzi isn't a podcast. It's a conversation about who you're going to be in this world. And it's changing faster than most people are willing to admit. So go check out Whoosy.ai, explore the tools, schedule a conversation, email Nate if you have any questions, Nate@Whoosy.ai. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Yeah. Thanks, Mo.